Thank you. Okay, so we are beginning our council meeting at 7:04, so again, my apologies for the slight delay. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Okay, hearing none, we have no public hearings today, and we have one delegation, and that's Mr. Gord Pickle from the Espanola United Church trustee. So please approach the podium and.
Thank you. I'm here tonight as a trustee of the United Church of Espanola regarding the sewer and water charge monthly of $99.91. As you must be aware, the churches are struggling to survive due to low attendance. I want this council, excuse me, I want this council to know that the United Church supplies a meeting place for many groups in this town. No rental fees are charged. However, some groups are able and do pay a donation if possible. This town does not have any facilities for any groups if they don't pay high rental fees. Some of the groups meeting at our church are Collective Kitchen, Alcoholics Anonymous, Sparks and Brownies, Narcotics Anonymous, Quilters Guild, and Save It ABLs. We are pleased that we have facilities for these groups and welcome every one of them. My question to council is, did council institute and approve these charges to the churches of Espanola? And if not, who did? A couple years ago, businesses and churches had water meters installed. And from what I know, there is no method set up to read these meters. A charge, large expense, but no return. We request at this time that council rethink this decision and reverse this action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hegel. Can we, because this has a financial implication to it, can we refer this to corporate services for discussion? Okay, so we will refer this to one of our committee meetings for further discussion at our next corporate services meeting. So if you want to leave a copy of your letter or send it to me via email, we would make sure that information is provided to corporate services at any time.
Okay. When I requested to be put on the agenda, I sent an email.
Okay.
And waited considerable time, never got a reply until I phoned back to the office and they checked on it to find out I was on the agenda.
Okay, so I know I did try and reach you once. We did play telephone tag once, but I have requested that you continue to stay on this agenda so that you can present the case for the church. So thank you for doing that. And it does not happen at the council meeting, like a decision doesn't happen at the council meeting where you make your presentation. So that's why I'm saying it's going to go to a committee for sure. And then the committee will have the discussion and make the recommendation back to council on the decision. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will move on to question period. So again, the question period is about our agenda here. Yes.
This is concerning the June 7th letter from First Nations. There are two questions. The first one will follow up. The June 7th letter was received by the mayor concerning the Whitefish River First Nations expressing interest in buying land in the municipality of Espanola and in transferring these newly bought lands to the reserve was not made public on the date June 7th or shortly afterwards by the mayor. Why?
I will answer your question. There is no indication, just based on how you worded that, that they are intending on buying land in the township of Espanola. all of that information comes out of the federal government, and that information is circulated to council.
Some research says that it's available out there. If that's okay. Why haven't any of the repercussions of such a possible transfer of municipal lands and resulting effects on the municipality of Eskimo been investigated and reported back to the general public? We should be made aware of it.
It was reported to council at the, I do believe I have the date. Let me just look to make sure I get the right page here. Look at it. The May 28th meeting, there was a discussion on at council table about the whole issue. So if you wish to go back and review those meeting video, the streaming of that meeting, go ahead. So
Maybe the one we can't hear half of what's being
May,
said.
I don't know. I know the date of that issue was May 28th. Okay, any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we will continue with the regular, the consent agenda. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Van Alstyne, seconded by Councillor Dufour. Be it resolved that items F1 to K13 inclusive contained in Part 1 consent agenda be adopted. And I will ask if there's anything that anybody wishes covered at this time. Okay, so I'll just go through all of the items individually. If you have any questions or comments, please stop me, and we can discuss any particular report at that time. So F is the adoption of minutes. Be it resolved that the following minutes are hereby accepted. The regular meeting of council on October 8th, 2019. Okay, board and committee reports. Be it resolved that the following board and committee reports are hereby accepted. Espanola Public Library Board meeting minutes of September 11, 2019, and or the joint health and safety meeting minutes of September 5th, 2019. Okay, there were no matters arising from the in-camera session, and there were no matters arising from boards or committees. And we have our confirmatory bylaw J1. Be it resolved that bylaw 294219 be adopted, being a bylaw of the town of Espanola to confirm the proceedings of its council, of the council on the meeting of October 8, 2019. And reports. So be it resolved that the following reports are hereby received. We have building department reports from February through September. Councillor Van Alstyne, did you have a question about the building department reports?
Yes, I did. When I was looking, and perhaps it's the way I put them together, I had trouble kind of understanding your outstanding building permits and the ones still on. So, like for example, when you start in February, I think it was, you had, where's my notes? I apologize. I do have it written. I have no idea where I put it. I put it in a good spot. But they weren't all matching between what you had opened and what were outstanding at the end. And then I emailed, and the clerks were very kind. Actually, Paula sent me back, not Paula, Cynthia did, that there were really 450 outstanding building permits, or 32. So it's confusing the way your report is coming out and showing what you had for outstanding permits. Some of them were like 24 or 40, and yet, so I don't understand how it's going.
The outstanding section is for orders to comply. So those orders to comply are, some of them are outstanding from previous years.
Okay.
I didn't have any reports on outstanding permits. We only had a number of permits issued for the month and the year, and a number of permits closed, and then the outstanding orders to comply.
Okay, so you didn't, there wasn't in there then how many outstanding permits there are at the end of every month or anything?
No,
building
I've never done it, but if that's something council wants, we could certainly add that to the report.
And I was wondering also on your report, I didn't see for the month how many man hours were spent in the building department. Like man hours is something I would look at, or do you have enough employees, or are you putting in a lot of overtime? And so that would be reflected in the man hours, but I don't see anything in your reports.
Basically, the total number of hours is ongoing.
Because there were some also for property standards, but only a couple of months showed that.
That's because when we lost our inspector in March or May, I didn't have the time to follow up on property standards. I just stuck with building issues. So now that we've got another person on board, we're now starting to keep track of the property standards again.
Okay, so if sometime in the future, maybe I would be able to contact you and we could maybe explain this a little better for me to understand how your reports are going through,
Absolutely.
if that would be all right?
Yes.
Can I make a suggestion? That community services look at the reports that, it is community services, eh? Look at the report formats, and if they suggest some changes, but keep in mind there that the more detailed the information is, the more time it takes to prepare it, okay? But there is some fundamental things that I think we should have, and it should go to community services to look at the format of those reports.
Okay, because I do see property standard hours.
Yeah,
So you just kind of, yeah, well, that's kind of the information that we received from the chief building official, that while there was somebody available, they were able to do it, and then when that person wasn't available, there was no property standards. Counselor Malott, will you kind of take notice and have that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, if you wish to, on the community services agenda. Okay. Any other comments on any of the building department reports? Okay, so we have Public Works Department report for September 2019. Any questions or comments?
No, Public Works, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I looked at the background on truck number 13. It's a 1999 Volvo purchased in 2004.
Point of order, should that be covered under, when we get to
We do,
L3?
we do have an item to talk
Okay.
specifically about that truck.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments on the report? Okay, Economic Development Department reports for September 2019. Okay, we have Fire Department report for August 2019 and September 19.
I only have one question. There was a firefighter who resigned. Any ideas why? Did they move out of the area, or?
We can get that information to you. Okay. Any other questions on the Fire Department reports? Okay, and the last one is the Research Services Department report for September 2019. Any questions or comments? Yes.
There was a leak in the roof and you were going to get an estimated cost to repair. Have you been able to get a cost?
You have to check with the facility supervisor,
Okay. And is, sorry,
and I'll get back to.
and is this issue with the leak in the roof, is this part of the roof problem that we discussed a few months ago?
No,
It's a separate one?
yes,
Thank you.
Yes.
Just to be clear, it's not the roof, is it, Joel? It's the, like an apparatus that's on the roof? It's the HVAC? Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'll call the question that the items up 1 to K13 inclusive and containing part 1 consent agenda be adopted. All in favor? Okay, that has been carried. Okay, and we will move on to our regular agenda items. Okay. Sure.
Okay, regular agenda, moved by Councillor Duplessis, seconded by Councillor Hayden. Be it resolved that Councillors blank and blank be appointed to the splash pad option subcommittee.
Okay, so we'll open up the floor for discussion. We're looking for 2 councillors that are interested in being involved in a splash pad subcommittee. Councillor Hayden? Do you have another councillor that is interested in this? Did you say you were interested in from time to being part of that splash pad discussions?
No.
Okay, looking for another councillor's name. Are you interested?
No, but I'll do it anyway.
Oh. That's the spirit.
Yeah, I know, right?
Okay, so unless anybody wants to challenge Council Dufour, the recommendation or the motion would be resolved that Councillor Hayden and Dufour be appointed to the splash pad option subcommittee. All in favor? Okay, that motion is carried.
Next motion, moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Duplessis. Be resolved that is recommended by the Community Services Committee that council include an Indigenous land acknowledgement statement before council and committees of council meetings.
Okay, so I will start the discussion on that item because it was deferred from the last council meeting since I wasn't able to attend. There is confusion that was added to this issue by requesting the previous letters that were dated May 5th, June 7th, I think was the other day. There was additional confusion added to this whole issue with those letters because one has nothing to do with the other. Those letters were something by the federal government that we actually have no control over. That was explained at the May 28th meeting. And there were some questions that were followed up. So that is not to do with having an Indigenous land acknowledgement statement. An Indigenous land acknowledgement statement comes out of the Truth and Reconciliation Report that we should be acknowledging the lands that we're reading on. It is something that is typically done before meetings. A lot of other levels of government are doing this. Other municipalities have added on Indigenous land acknowledgement statements. Public corporations such as schools, school boards, a lot of unions are adding Indigenous land acknowledgement statements before they start a meeting. And basically the statement would say something like the choice of still ours, but it would say something like, we recognize that this land is the territorial. Let's actually take a look at the Guelph one. So here's the one from the city of Guelph. As we gather, we are reminded that Guelph is situated on treaty land and that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people today. As a city, we have a responsibility for the stewardship of the land in which we live and work. Today, we acknowledge the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation on whose traditional territory we are meeting. So in terms of where we are, we would be acknowledging the Whitefish River First Nation as the territory land on which we're meeting. So we could adopt a statement very similar to the city of Guelph, but we would acknowledge the Whitefish River First Nations. Any other comments on this item? Councillor Foster.
Well, we had some background information that went with this, and one of them was on guidance on traditional land acknowledgement statements and from the AMO.
Yeah.
And they had a protocol that they suggest that if a community's thinking about doing that, we should follow a protocol and make sure that we've done the right thing, okay, and the right things and included the right input. So I suggest that we amend create amendment to this at the very end at council and committee meetings of council using the AMO recommended protocol. So we go and recommend that we include an Indigenous land acknowledgement, but we use the protocol to develop it.
So you want to change, have a wording change to the motion?
Yes,
Okay, so the motion would be council including the Indigenous land acknowledgement statement before council and communities of council using the AMO.
recommended protocol.
Okay, so I will add that.
So the Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
Okay, then I need these councilors to initial the change, right? Okay, so you do an initial of the change that are written on the motion, please. And councilor, I think it's council before.
Pardon me? Oh,
Yeah, it's council almost on.
Okay, under
Just,
the,
hold on,
Okay.
okay, so right now what we're doing is we have to vote on the amendment first. Can we go back to general discussion? Unless there's another comment on
No,
the
that's-
amendment.
that's not me.
You're good? Okay.
It's Ken.
Oh, is it, well, okay, sorry. I was just looking at it from here. Okay, so all in favor of the amendment to add the wording using the AMO recommended protocol? Okay, so we have, that has passed to add that to the motion. Okay, so now we're back to the general discussion. Councilor Van Alstyne?
okay, so under the guidance on traditional land acknowledgements, on the first page, it says, while municipal governments should be mindful that inaccurate acknowledging entities and territories may have legal implications, land acknowledgement statements are best interpreted as a venue for recognizing what is known of past Indigenous usage and occupancy. Interested municipalities are advised to create statements specific to their jurisdiction based on legally recognized treaty or traditional lands, or opt out for a high-level general statement. So I made some inquiries of people I knew on a reserve, and from what I am understanding, Sagamok and Whitefish River have boundary issues that they are not finished discussing. So I think we are being a little bit too hasty in going ahead to prepare this statement when we don't know for 100% certainty whether or not it's one or both, or which of the reserves you'd want to be naming.
I can share this from my perspective at the school. We recognize the whitefish, let me just think of the wording. We recognize the territorial lands of the Anishinaabe people, specifically Whitefish River First Nations and Sagamok Anishinaabe First Nations. So we actually at the school level recognize both that they're Anishinaabe peoples. So they're the same group of Indigenous peoples. And we can agree to have an Indigenous acknowledgement statement and have the wording vetted and checked by people. There are tribal maps that shows where the boundaries are, where the disputed areas are, and we can ask that be checked.
Okay.
Before we actually have the wording ready at council meetings.
Yes, and I believe Whitefish River may go under a different name now as well.
As far as I know, there's still Whitefish River.
No, I think
And even the documentation that we have from the federal government identifies them as Whitefish River First Nations.
That's why I suggested we follow the protocol, because the protocol forces you to address those issues.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, so this, yeah, so go ahead.
Why couldn't we just say on the Anishinaabe territory instead of naming anybody?
We can.
And wouldn't that just kind of eliminate that problem? Because we're not, if you look at the protocol, like the Guelph one, which I happen to like, because that's the one I looked at earlier, and I thought I was the one I liked the best. If we just included that instead, that kind of eliminates the specifics. Just, we're doing a generalized statement, which was what was recommended. And then that way, we're not having to worry about that. I don't believe anybody would be offended by that.
Well, what we can still do is pass this resolution that we want to read the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement Statement, but then have staff research and come back with a specific statement. Right? And then it's gone through the proper process and protocol. At that point in time, we read what is prepared.
So if we approve this, we also give direction to staff
Give
to
direction to staff
come back with
to
the
come back
final
with-
wording,
with the
okay,
final
and a
wording.
bit of a report on what they found when they went through the protocol.
We could ask that, yes. Councilor Dufour, were you gonna add something?
Well, I was just gonna say, could we not just do this during Appreciation Week or something like that? Would you really want to say it every time you have a meeting?
We do every single day at school. I do it every single union meeting.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm talking, this is more like a,
Yep, it's done at every single public meeting that I've ever attended at the provincial level.
yeah,
And we were just at the annual conference. They also read it at the annual conference. So it is starting to be fairly widespread in terms of knowledge.
yeah, I checked on the internet and I know there is some people that have it. There is some townships, I should say, and even Toronto, I believe.
And I think it goes a long way to furthering partnerships that we have with all of the people that are in our community and in our neighboring communities.
I just was saying because we have partners from all, walks of life. We don't mention them, so it was just a little something that bothered me a little bit. To acknowledge, each and every meeting. But you have to say it, so.
I have to pronounce the names, which is fine. There was something that addresses that in one of the documentations that we received. In terms of, it was the second one that we had received, in terms of what the purpose was. There was the CBC report.
Oh,
And, let's see what next.
Page 55, yeah.
Page 55.
At the bottom.
Yeah, no, I was looking for something else in terms of, it's a new process to us, but it's actually not new to the Anishinaabe people or to Indigenous people, where they always, every time they gather, they acknowledge what land they were gathering on and meeting on. So I don't know where that is, but it's definitely in the documentation that you received, so. Okay, so actually, top of page 56. Norman says land acknowledgements have become increasingly common in non-Indigenous spaces in the last few years, especially since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission on Residential Schools released its mandatory calls to action in 2015. Okay, so, and there is some more information in there. So, I would like to give staff direction to come up with the proper wording and approve this motion. So is there any other further comments? So I will call a motion, moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Duplessis, as recommended by the Community Services Committee, be it resolved, Council include an Indigenous land acknowledgement statement before council and committee meetings of council, using the annual recommended protocol. All in favor? Okay, motion has passed. And we'll give staff direction to come back with some specific wording for our area.
Next motion, moved by Councilor Duplessis, second by Councilor Hayden. Be resolved that council purchase a used triaxle with a budget limit of 120,000 using funds from the equipment reserve.
Okay, so I'll open up the floor to discussion. Councilor Van Alstine, I think you had something for this item.
Yes. CAO Wisconsin was very good to send me back your list of required replacement forecasts for the year. So I've been looking at what you were looking at. So your number 13 is a 1999 Volvo triaxle. That's the one you're looking at. That's one you had problems with, and that's one you're looking at replacing. So when I was looking down on here for the year 2020, we have some other ones that are coming up. And when I was running the numbers, I see some of them don't have very much life left. So my question is, since we're going into budget, is do you think maybe the replacement year should be revised on some of these other equipment?
Mr. Parker is the author of the document, so I'll turn it over to him.
The document is a guide, meant to be a guide and give council an idea of things that are coming up. Every year, we encounter maintenance issues with vehicles that sometimes change their position and what's the highest priority. So then in that guide, the triaxle was scheduled for next year. Unfortunately, it's not going to make it there. I mean, the purchase can be delayed until next year, but the triaxle is no longer operational.
I concur with what your recommendation is to go ahead and buy a second-hand one.
Mhm.
I was just wondering if, looking at the other ones that you have, we maybe should be looking, when you're doing the 2020 budget, of replacing one of the other ones as well, because some of them don't have very much estimated life left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I normally do that in budget. I usually update the document, and I can certainly have that ready for council and considering it and to back up the recommendations for capital purchases.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this particular one? Councilor Newport?
Yeah, I did. I was looking at, that's what you had put down there. The information that you gave for the triaxle, the one that we rented out, or that was rented to us, had an operator. Can we not use our own operator on those?
That would depend on the company that we're able to secure one from. There was a time when they would allow us to sometimes supply an operator for excavators and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
This particular time, operator was mandatory. They wanted their own operator operating the truck.
Okay. And then I noticed that also, I guess us renting it was about $100 a day.
About $100 an hour.
An hour.
Oh, $100 an hour, okay. And if we were to buy one with the operation and everything else, is this where your price of $80 an hour shows up?
That's my estimate, yes, because
So would it be fair to say that if we had our own operator, paying him $20 an hour, it would be basically the same thing to lease a truck?
we wouldn't be able to hire an operator for $20 an hour.
Well, I'm just saying, it would only be a few, maybe cents short of that.
Not sure I understand.
Councilor Dufour,
Mm-hmm.
in the staff reports, the
Mm-hmm.
$80 an hour does also already include our labor.
It also what?
It includes the labor cost.
Yes, it does. Yes, it has here $20 an hour, right?
No,
Or-
38.14 an hour.
That includes the
Charged
Oh,
with overhead.
Well, yeah, the
Charged with
38,
overhead.
wasn't that for the other?
No, that's our.
Oh, that's ours.
what I put in, that's our charge rate for every truck.
Oh, okay. Oh, charge out rate. Okay,
Sorry.
that's all right. Okay. So this other one, can we fix it? No.
13,
Yeah.
we spent a lot of time trying.
Yeah.
We haven't really gotten anywhere, and
Okay.
it's been expensive, so I don't recommend investing any more money in that truck.
So I think you don't recommend the contract either then?
For me,
The contract one, you don't recommend that?
there's variables there, right? It's gonna work out to be a slightly higher cost, hourly cost, and availability is a big thing. You know, you pick up the phone, they're not necessarily sitting there waiting for a job. And in a winter like last, I think we were very fortunate to get a truck for the duration that we got it.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we could just rent one for the winter, like,
I think if you rent it for the winter financially, I think that's gonna be a lot less appealing than purchasing one, having it, because we did look at that when we were doing the plow truck purchase, I believe 2 years ago. And the rental fees, the only truck I was able to source was very expensive, like it was close to 40,000 for the winter type thing.
okay. 'Cause
For a plow truck.
I had seen some and I saw them for, like $1,000 a week.
Yes, for triaxle, it might be a little bit better, but
I
it
think
can also
it was
sit
a
there for 2 weeks and not being used at the same time.
That's true, yeah. So it was just, you know, just something else to look
There are
at.
other options for sure.
Thank you, Council Foster.
Thanks.
I'd like to point out, if you take $120,000, and if you can get 20 years life out of that vehicle, or maybe that's too much, 15 years, that's about $7,000 a year as a capital cost for the truck. Okay, and no matter what, if you're paying somebody else to rent that truck, you're paying for the labor, you're paying for the maintenance costs to maintain that, and all the operating costs, plus the overhead that goes with that, and including the new vehicle. So $7,000 plus our labor plus our maintenance is not that bad a deal. It's actually a pretty decent deal for us.
Councilor Newman.
Will we recoup
Sorry.
some loss on the old triaxle? Will we gain, if we sell it, can we gain money for it?
Yeah, I think there's people interested in the used triaxle parts and that. Yeah. There's already, we actually discovered that this electrical specialist we contracted from the person who's doing emissions testing, and he actually expressed interest. So I think I would just throw a number of maybe $10,000, but I gotta look into that. I need to dive into that part.
Okay. Did you have anything further?
I just wanted to reiterate that it doesn't make sense to spend more money in after we've gone so far. My husband always says you can do a point where it's just not worth it to do that anymore. And you could fix it, spend the money to fix it, and then in 2 weeks have something else major broken, go down, and then you have to replace the whole thing anyhow. It's just sometimes better to get rid of it and get to something else.
Okay, sorry, I'm, Councilor Van Alstyne. I'm gonna go to Councilor Dupuis first because he has not spoken on this issue.
It's coming to you.
I give credit to your mechanics trying to fix this, spend a lot of time on it, and I think they would be very happy if they found a problem. Just one thing, it's not a criticism, but in your report, apparently we have a rare model of Volvo triaxle. So I hope you get something that's common.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll try to do that again.
Councilor Van Alstyne.
I just wondered, when you're going out looking for the replacement, if you could do a comparison between buying a new one or as close to new as possible. What I'd be looking at is how many more years of service would we have, less maintenance, you know, things like that, to see if in the long run buying new would be better. Like, I haven't got a clue what the cost would be, but
I can certainly look at it for sure. I think used is going to be more attractive just because it's a lower hour machine. You know, if you use it 400 hours a year, it won't be working all the year. Where a newer, you know, I think a used will be more attractive. But I could certainly get that number for you.
Are you just going to kind of email it and you like to all council what the cost of the vehicle would be?
I think I mean, I can probably even do a report. If we store something, I can probably do a quick email or something like that. It can be a circulation thing.
Okay.
And then, yeah, before we pull the trigger for sure.
So we still have this one that would approve the purchase of the triaxle. But knowing that we will get other information if there's a new one. Because you're gonna have to source a used one, right? Anyways, I'm guessing it'll take a little time.
Yeah, cool for sure.
Okay. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, so that's carried.
Next resolution moved by Councilor Foster, seconded by Councilor Dupuis. Be resolved that council for the town of Espanola supports the recommendations as submitted by Cape Breton Chamber of Commerce regarding advancing Canadian competitiveness using short line rail. And therefore be it resolved that council for the town of Westmoreland recommends that the federal government create a dedicated short line capital funding program that is accessible to all short line companies. 2, establish a tax credit program to assist short line rail companies in making capital investments. And furthermore, a copy of the resolution be forwarded to the Right Honorable Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister, and all MP and MPs.
Okay, so open up for discussion. Councillor Foster, would you like to add any further information on this?
No, this is in relationship to Huron Central Railway. The problem that Huron Central has is they don't have enough traffic to cover all the operating costs, all the short-term maintenance costs, and all the long-term maintenance costs. And they've been looking to ask for $40 million over 5 years to keep the rail system going for 10 years. It's a significant economic impact on our local Domtar and Econ. And if that rail system goes down, it prevents the potential development anywhere along the line between Sudbury and the Soo of maybe some major projects, okay, new mine opening up or whatever. This was something recommended to and pushed by I don't know the exact name of the group, but besides the Chamber of Commerce, but this looked like it had it had the support of Transport Canada. So this is one of the things that at the very least we need to get that. We need money from the federal government, and this is maybe one way to get it. And it may be a long-term sustainable way to get it. Because the problem that we have there is you spend some money and then the problem hasn't gone away, the long-term sustainability hasn't gone away, so this is maybe a way to make that happen.
Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, the government is aware, as Bill was saying, the government is aware of the situation, and they know that there isn't many drivers, never mind in Canada, in all of North America, that can, where we're short of drivers. So hopefully they're gonna have to do something. I can only wish, but.
I agree. I think any support that we can lend to this initiative of trying to get the proper funding to maintain short line rails is an important step that we take. And I think this is just another action that we can take to forward our concerns onto the federal government for funding.
I agree.
Okay, I see no other comments, so I will call the question. All in favor? Okay, that motion is carried. Yeah. So the next item on the agenda is just information that was requested. So it is being circulated, and it's information on building permit requirements, and it is an informational item only. So the information that was circulated is a staff report, a copy of our building services, as well as the Ontario Municipal Council's Guide of 2018 that talks about building code regulations. Yes.
The L5 then is for information.
For information.
Was there even something else that it should have been under, maybe, perhaps?
Not that I'm aware of. The request was to staff that we take a look at what we are charging building permits for, and if there's any changes for that.
It's just that we're associating the Ls with I'll wait
Okay,
here.
well, I'll just let you finish.
Well, we've learned to associate the Ls for either bylaws or so on and so forth,
Okay.
resolving an issue.
So this would have gone to the community and probably had some discussion in there.
Yeah.
Which I would think that my thoughts are, you probably want it to go back to community, but it was so you had the information.
Okay.
Discussion.
It was
Because
just
that meeting was canceled.
it was just the line number or the item itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, when a committee meeting gets canceled, basically because of whatever reason, lack of quorum, not enough specific items on the agenda, if it's just receiving reports, oftentimes all of those items get pushed to the next council meeting. So this could be something that if you would like, you could go back onto the next community services for discussion.
I think it should, yes.
Okay. Make notes.
Thank you.
Okay, so that is all, it for our new business. What we have no correspondence that was informational. Other information that was circulated to council includes the memo of correspondence on the ONPF discussions, and East Ferris resolution, and that was regarding conference childcare services. I believe that was directed to email. There was the board and lander survey correspondence regarding the OED decision, and correspondence from Mary Ingersoll regarding landfill development. We don't have any conferences or conventions coming up, so we'll move into mayor and council reports and announcements. So we'll start with.
I have nothing.
You have nothing?
Neither have I. Thank you.
Me neither.
A few points. October 2nd, we had a very informative training session with Fred Dean and Nigel Bellchamber. And it'll probably be useful in some of our procedural bylaws. Compliments to all the volunteers involved in the Pumpkin Fest. I was reminded by a former Hydro board member, Eskimo Hydro, that they had agreed in negotiations that there would be an advisory board. We have to keep that in mind. And one more thing, November the 6th, we're starting budget for the library board. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Hagan.
Thanks. Attended the Pumpkin Festival on the weekend. It was well attended. Lots of people from out of town, which was wonderful to see. Lots of very talented people around, which was also very nice to see. I think that it's just a wonderful event that we have in our community. Having the farmers market down at the Outs was an ingenious idea. I'm sure they had a very high turnout rate because there was so many people going into the Outs to see that, and then off to the Legion for the rest of it. And there was some good food at the Legion. So hats off to everybody for doing such a great job. And I hope we continue because I think it's a worthwhile community activity.
Thank you.
I don't have anything.
Okay, I was going to also mention the training that we received. Thank you, Councilor Duplessis, for mentioning that. I also wanted to acknowledge that Pumpkin Festival. I believe I saw you walk by at the Oaks, and I saw Councilor Hayden that day. I was at Pancake Breakfast that morning. I was at the event at United Church, and it's really nice that we have both community festivals happening at the same time. I find that it draws a lot of people to our community. I saw a number of people coming from Sudbury, from Lively. There was people that had family from out of town, that far out of town, coming and enjoying all events. And I think it's wonderful every time that we have the opportunity to showcase our community. So a good job to all the organizers of both of those events. And I know we have staff involved in some of the things. I know we had staff involved in Pancake Breakfast. I know that Cheryl Kennelly does a lot of work organizing, and I'm sure there's a lot of people supporting her in the background to make sure all of those things happen. And to Jody Pimo, who is the main organizer for the fiber arts portion of the festival. She also had to deal with changing venues at the last minute. So thank you also to community partners that opened up their halls, like the Elks Hall and the Legion, that the events could go on. I think there's events also at the golf course, the Sacred Heart Public School at Boogie Mountain. So thank you to all of our community partners for that as well. I don't have anything else to announce. So just looking at next council and committee meetings. Okay, so looking at future council and committee meetings, we do have a preliminary budget meeting or budget preparation meeting tomorrow at 4 o'clock. We have a corporate services committee meeting on November 5th, and then our next meeting of council is going to be November 12th. That says at 4 p.m. and this will be 7 p.m.
Yes, 7.
At 7 p.m. is our next regular meeting of council. Any other meetings that we had? I don't think so at this time. Okay, so we have a meeting to adjourn, moved by Councilor Duplessis, seconded by Councilor Hayden. Be it resolved that the regular meeting of council is hereby adjourned at 7:53 p.m. All in favor?